barely have any experience with animation, but I'm gonna learn how to animate in a week.
I've animated emotes before, so that basically means I'm a pro, right? Yeah, I don't think so.
I never even learned the basics, so let's make a whole animated scene. So here's my intensive training plan. On the first day, we'll do some exercises. On day 2, we'll sketch out the storyboard. Day 3 goes for sketching. Day 4, line art. Day 5, color. On day 6, I'll add effects and sound effects. And day 7, I'll edit and hopefully upload. Wish me luck. I'm gonna be using what a lot of anime artists use, Clip Studio Paint. It is my main software and I've used it before to animate small things like emotes, but I never really understood how it works. I would basically just cut up and puppeteer an already rendered artwork. So yeah, I was kind of just flailing around like a helpless fish and kind of just pray and hope that it looked good once I clicked the play button. So that's gonna change today. I'm gonna be drawing this animation frame by frame, and honestly, I already have an idea in my mind using my OC, but first, I really think I should learn the basics. So here's our timeline, and here's something called an onion skin. It's so that you can see the frames that come before and after, and previously I just made the layers overlap and my timeline was a mess. Yeah, so let's do what every beginner animator does. Let's draw some balls. I mean, who doesn't like balls? They're round, they're bouncy, and honestly, I bet even more people like well-animated balls. Now, the idea is for the ball to drop and bounce from one side to the other. Now, since the balls are a bit squishy, they need to squish a little when they hit the ground and like bounce back up when they leave the ground. Also, since I'm an artist that also draws anime girls with personalities, I really need to learn this skill for reasons. Okay, not too bad. I like it. So let's try some other exercises. Now here's the pendulum. We kind of just need to dangle this thing from side to side. These lines show the timing, so there will be more frames towards the side than in the middle. Is there like an easy way to copy paste this? Because I really don't want to redraw this every frame. After some more struggling, I think I managed to learn how to copy paste frames, and it's not as easy as I thought. But we got our really fast moving but actually swinging pendulum. I also just played around a little bit to get a feeling of the motion, so here's some, I guess, flying dots. Honestly, at this point, I'm just having fun. Look at this jelly turning into octopus. Isn't that cute? I could turn anything into jelly, even poop. Obviously, I wanted to try out something a little bit more challenging, like falling octopus. Now, I obviously forget how difficult it is to animate tentacles. I tried a lot of different techniques, including this amazing puppet warp thing. So let's change him into a ball first and then add the tentacles. I think it looks more dynamic than just like, I don't know, a falling tentacle boy. Also want to add some eyes and maybe some effects. And I also learned how to use animation folders to my advantage. I never knew these existed. The benefits of studying, huh? And after lining and rendering every frame, here's the finished result. It's not perfect at all, but it's a good starting point. I did just spend an entire day just exercising and watching tutorials, but I will have to step up the complexity if I want to animate a whole scene by the end of this week. On day 2, I started off with some more exercises, like this spinning ball, both in 2D and 3D. And I also animated an actual head turning, which was easier than I thought, until I realized I had to get the timing correct within 24 frames. I only have the cheap version of Clip Studio Paint, so that limits us to 24 frames. So our animation might look a bit choppy, but it's okay, it's a learning thing, right? Now the thing that I was dreading the most was animating hair. I watched a lot of tutorials on how to do this, and I tried to find tips and tricks on how to do it easier, like imagine falling balls on both sides, but it kind of just ended up looking worse, so I tried to just draw it by feeling, and honestly, it kind of just looks better this way. Now to make it in time, I also had to start planning the idea of the animation. I'll be using my OC, and I want an anime opening style, POV camera interaction scene that lasts around, I don't know, 10 seconds. I know 10 seconds doesn't sound like, wow, amazing. But that's basically how animations work. You bust your ass, and the finished result is like 2 seconds. So this is the story we have so far. I want to see her walking, boing boing. Then she notices you there. She taps on the screen, to like, I don't know, break the fourth wall or something. She gets closer, realizes you're there, and watching her, she gets shy and then pushes you over. Honestly, pretty low accurate. I think it is pretty ambitious for a first animation, but I also think it's a challenge I am up for. Spoiler, I will regret this. Now on day 3, I was finally ready to start on the actual animation. Since I only had 24 frames per file, I'll have to separate each scene and put them together towards the end. We will start with the walking animation. I obviously didn't even know where the to start, but thankfully there's a lot of good resources online for references. And honestly, when I got extra confused, I just put up the camera and recorded myself walking in place. I learned that the best way to go by it is drawing the main poses and then fill in the in-betweens, because it kept me from getting too confused. Just gonna tug on this a bit. Boing. Boing, boing. Now on to my nemesis, hair. Yeah, this probably took the longest and I really struggled, so I ended up drawing just a few main bodies or strands of hair and called it a day because I was about to lose it. Now she has to be clothed, unfortunately, and I'm pretty sure the tighter the clothes are, the better, because you know, you don't have to animate the clothes too. On to the next scene. Since I already spent half the day working on the first scenes, I'm gonna skip the she notices you frame and just go straight for the finger. Thankfully, this wasn't too hard and I was able to use my own finger as reference. Yay. Now, from the finger tapping scene comes the "do you have any games on your phone?" scene, which thankfully wasn't as hard as I expected. Just needed to get the flow and the movement kind of believable. And this is all we made for day 3. I'm only halfway through these sketches and I have no idea how we're gonna make this in time, but I'm late for my bread baking stream, so I don't have time to think about that. It's so flat. Ah. It is day 4 and it's time to finish sketching out everything else. We have this "she gets surprised you're there" scene into the angry pouting scene, and I think the hardest part here was getting the timing correctly so that you actually have time to register what's happening before the scene changes again. Once again, it's the limits of a CSP Pro pleb. Finally and thankfully, I made the last scenes have less poses. So this is done and I'll probably have to do the background and the motion here in the editing software. Finally, our sketches are done and ready for line art. And I really didn't know that tomorrow was the day everything would fall apart. It is day 5 and I woke up hopeful and happy to do line art. For drawing full illustrations, line art is like the one thing I'm confident in, okay? I enjoy that shit. So for animation, did you know that line art is the most time-consuming and dreaded part of it? Obviously, there's many ways I could have done this easier for myself, like, I don't know, layering stuff properly. But of course, my inexperienced didn't think much about it during the sketching phase. I was just there for the ride, okay? Thankfully though, I could use vector lines and those saved me a lot of time. I spent literally 8 hours just lining that day and I wasn't even done. I would have continued until my wrist fell off, but it was a stream day, so I had to do the rest tomorrow. It is the day before deadline day. I haven't finished lining, and while eating breakfast and watching tutorials, I realized, oh my god, I've done a huge mistake. Something a lot of Japanese animators do is drawing the cell shading as a line. I didn't do this because, you know, I didn't know. So the coloring stage is gonna be a lot worse than I expected. So after finishing the line art, which took a few hours, I realized the consequences of my own actions because it is pretty hard to see the onion skin lines when you're doing colors. Did you know? Who would have thought? And my desperation drove me to doing something I never really do anymore. Drinking coffee. The coffee gave me a weird stomachache, the shakes, and also a rapidly beating heart. But I was able to get through the coloring in one day. Literally the entire day. It is now 2 a.m. and I really want to go to bed. Let's just pray I can wake up and just put it all together tomorrow. Good morning. I exported each frame into my editing software and put all of them together. So yeah, I don't know much about animation, but my years of editing AMVs has taught me a thing or two about editing. So every good animation needs sound effects. And I needed quite a lot for my little, I don't know, 10-second animation. So let's make some. ASMR time. How do you make a pout sound? I think I need some more voice acting practice, mostly on how to not die of cringe. I also made this simple, but I guess kind of cute background that will move in the back. So I layered it so that the foreground and background move at different speeds because it just looks a bit more believable, I guess. Now the clock is ticking, it is 8 p.m. and it's almost upload time, so I will have to rush this. Honestly, most of you guys have already seen this one, but here we go again. Anyways, that was it for now. Bye!